we've done our stair calculation. We looked at the building code to make sure that the figures we came up with actually comply with building code requirements. We're good to go for layout. Remember, before cutting comes layout. On this sheet here, I drew two shapes. The blue shape here is the finished piece of wood that we're gonna end up with. The red one is the piece of wood, the 2x10, that we start with, on which we place the layout. Everything else will be cut away. This triangle will be cut away, this triangle is a cutaway, all this will be cut away, and all this will be cut away. At the ends, it looks like it's a whole lot of waste, but it's actually, you need this working space to properly lay out your set of stairs. And just take 5 minutes here to visualize what we're doing and how to determine the minimum length of lumber needed for this stair layout. You recall that in the stair calculation we calculated that we're gonna need 4 risers to go from the floor to the top of the landing. You see here on the finished piece 3 risers. The first one there, second one there, and the third one there. There's no mistake here. The 4th riser will be here, where I put the broken line there. This is gonna be the landing here. I'm drawing the shape of the landing. This is how the set stair stringer will meet the landing, and the 4th riser will form at the edge of the landing. So the calculation is good, and this shape for a stair stringer is also correct. At a couple of terms here, at this point here, where the 4th riser forms, there's gonna be a plum cut, and I'm not talking fruit, it's spelled the other way. It's a plum cut. Here we're gonna have a level cut, and I'll show you how those cuts are made. And for that we need one more concept, the unit bridge. Recall that the unit bridge was calculated in the stair calculation video and was tripled. That dimension, which was 39 inches and 7/8, will be laid out from this point, 1 unit bridge, 2 unit bridges, 3 to that point, and not anywhere else. How these zigzags will be laid out on the wood, it's gonna be with a framing square that has a shape like so. We're gonna place the stair gauges on it and clamp it on the blade. One there, one there. The unit rise will be marked here on the framing square from the corner to the stair gauge, and the unit run will be laid out here from the corner to the stair gauge. The stair gauge then will be placed on the edge of the lumber here, and that's gonna give us the runs and the rises, the run and the rise and the run and one more rise. So the minimum length of lumber, the minimum length of lumber that we need is calculated by the unit bridge multiplied by 4. It's not an actual calculation that we do. The unit bridge was 13 inches and a third, and about the third part, don't worry about it, and don't be looking for it on the tape measure either, but 13 inches and a third, 26 inches and 2/3, 39 inches and 3/3, so that's 40 inches. It was 39 and 7/8, that's almost 40 inches. So we're gonna need an extra 13 inches on top of the 40 inches, so that's gonna be 53 inches. That's the minimum length of lumber that we need, because the first placement of the square will be here. This is the first spot. So from the corner of the lumber, you can see that's as close as you can go. This first placement will give us the first riser. This is the second placement for the framing square. Here is the third placement for the framing square and the fourth placement for the framing square. So we're gonna have these two lines on first. Once we do, you will see that I'm gonna extend this line to give us the level cut. I'm gonna extend that line, and all this wood will be cut away. So will that be cut away, but that's a line that we actually need. All this will come out, all this will come out. I'm gonna place the framing square the fourth time here. All that will be cut away. I'm not gonna extend the level line because I don't need it. I'm gonna extend this line to make a plumb cut and cut away all that. So that's why you need a length of lumber that's approximately equal to 4 times the unit bridge. That's the bare minimum. So there's your 4 square placements on the wood, and it's advisable and wise to have a longer piece of wood, because you're gonna need to work around cracks and knots in the lumber and other imperfections I'm gonna show you. So now that you have a visual idea what has to take place, let's go out to the yard and let's start laying it out. We're ready to lay out the stair on a piece of wood. What we need for this layout is a small nail, a hammer, the tape measure, a pencil that you like. Make sure it's sharp enough to write on lumber with, your stair calculations, 2 stair gauges that I already mounted on the framing square. The first number that I laid out on the framing square was the rise, 6 3/8, and the second number is 11 inches and 11/16. Do remember that when you convert that number, it was about 10.6/16, not 11/16. So I'll show you how that looks like in real life. From the corner here, this is where 0 is on the framing square, we go 1 2 3 4 5 6 inches and 3/8. There is 6 1/8, 6 2/8, 6 3/8. When the stair gauge is mounted properly, 6 3/8 and the edge or corner of the stair gauge meet in this fashion. For the 11 and 11/16, this is what I came up with. There is 11 inches. That's 1/8, so that's 1/8. Every 8 is 2/16. 2/16, 4/16, 6/16, 8/16, 10/16, and 11/16. You can kind of see how it's approximated. Because it is approximated, that's why we had to calculate the 3 times the amount of unit bridge, and we came up with that number, 39 7/8 of an inch. So how the stair layout goes is, particularly if you do it alone, is that you start at the corner of a nice size of 2x10, somewhere about there. You can start in the corner right away, but before you start anywhere, you have to look at your piece of wood. And I chose a piece of wood here that has some defects. You should choose a piece of wood that's straight when you look into it. That would be this direction for the camera. You look into it, you lift it up to your eye, and it should be straight. It shouldn't be warped, It shouldn't be cupping. It better not have a camber, which a camber would run in this direction. And most importantly, take a look at cracks and knots. I have some big knots in this one. Look at that, it goes through. The biggest knots should be placed away from the bottom of the stair stringer. In other words, try to place your zigzag lines so that these come out and these get removed with the zigzag layout when you lay out your run and your rise. And that's why you might want a piece of lumber that is longer than the bare minimum. And remember back, the bare minimum is 4 times your unit bridge if you have 3 runs and 4 risers. So if you have 4 risers, it's 4 times your unit bridge is your bare minimum length to have enough room for your layout. But have some extra room so you can shift your layout depending on how you meet your how you meet the nuts in the lumber. You might need to work around them and shift your layout and redo it again until you're happy with your with the placement of your knots. If the knots stay on the stair stringer and you find that you would need to drill holes into it to fasten your threads or your risers into it, that's gonna be another pain as well. So work around them. Once you decided that the nuts should go on the upper edge and not on the lower edge, and you know that you might have to shift your layout, just start at the edge like so. Place your framing square with the stair gauges on like so and draw your first line there. I am aware that it will not be entirely visible, but and I'm gonna have to do this to make the line visible. You can see the line, and when you come close enough to it, you can cut along this line with a skill saw, no problem. So that's your first one. At this point, you need to square this line across, not by eyeballing like I did. You would actually need a speed square, and put a nail in here. Try to put your nail exactly halfway through that line, the first line that you made. From this line, you need to lay out 3 times the unit bridge in that direction. So what I'm gonna do is exactly that. Put the nail in here, put it in the wood just like so. I'm gonna hook my tape measure on it and measure out 39 inches and 7/8, and I'm gonna mark it on the edge here. 39 and 7/8. Just bear with me here. Lands there. You would need your there. That's my mark on the wood. There, so you can see it. You would need your speed square, not a framing square, but I forgot to bring it out, so I'm just gonna do it this way. Square it across, so I have there. Square it across, so I have a mark on the edge of the wood, and I can work with it. I also noticed right away that this knot is moving. It definitely has to come out. Okay, let's see what we got here. So this was my first one. This is my first riser. I'm gonna number it. There, that's my first riser. There, I wrote number 1 on it. This is my first riser. This is gonna be cut away. I said I'm gonna extend this line horizontally to form the bottom of the stair to make the level cut. I'm gonna do it without my stair gauges on the square. So first I just keep laying out my rises and runs. take a look here. This is how it looks like when I move the stair gauge to the second position. The edge of the stair gauge has to line up with my pencil line. And do your best eyeballing. If it's out a little bit, it's a problem. The edge of the lumber here is slightly rounded. It's really hard to show you, but you get the idea. So that's why it's very important that you place this as accurately as you possibly can. I'm gonna do my best, and I'm happy with that one. I'm gonna do my second riser and my first run. That's my second riser, and that's my first run. That's where I'm gonna put my step first. That's the second one of my runs will go here. And that's my third riser here. And there we go. We've got 3 runs and 3 rises. Notice that the knot here, you see my pencil line on the wood. This is the cutaway part, and this is the part that stays. The knot is still contained within the stair. It's not good. I'm gonna need to shift my whole layout in that direction 2 inches so that I can get rid of that knot, and also that one which I intersected halfway. So I would need to repeat the whole thing, everything I started, but I'm not gonna do it. I'm just gonna finish this one. Just pretend those knots are not in the way anymore and everything has been shifted 2 inches in that direction, okay? To get my plumb cut and level cut, I'm gonna need to get the stair gauges off, and this is how it is done. That's my 4th riser, but that 4th riser is not going to be a problem. It's not going to be in the way. The 4th riser, I don't know, can you guys see that number 4? So that's my 4th riser. It's not going to be, that knot actually is not going to be in the way, and this 4th riser is going to be formed by the edge of the landing. What I need to do is extend this line here down like so, accurately, and this is my cut line. So everything here will be cut away. All this is a cut away, and this is the final shape there, the outline of the final shape, except that, like I said, it has to move 2 inches in that direction. At the tail end of things, you see that number 1 there? That's my first riser. I'm not gonna have to extend this cut much anywhere. I'm gonna have to extend this horizontal line here in that direction. All I do is put my square on it and just continue the line like so. All this is cut away, all this is cut away. So that's there, my finished shape, but we're almost done, but not quite yet. There's gonna be 2 shortenings to make from here on, and those 2 shortenings are important. What I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna shift my layout, and I'm gonna make a solid outline in with the black or blue marker so you can see it better, and then I'll explain the shortening. And here is my finished shape showing the shortenings. But what happened here? Let's go back a little bit to the penciled in version. Yep, there is some of the pencil marks that are barely visible. So this had to be shifted because of this knot. 2 inches forward. So for that purpose, I moved this reference point forward a little bit and made my first run and rise there, and then my second, my third, and my fourth. If you look closely, by the time I got to the fourth, you can see my pencil line there. Accidentally, on purpose, I did a sloppy work with lining up my stair gauges in the new position in reference to a previous position. So when I overlaid it, I made a little bit sloppy work on it, and you can see the difference between the pencil line and the final line because I had to adjust it. And what happened was that you can see my theory reference line marking 3 unit bridges length. That's why you lay it at. So by the time you get to the fourth riser, you can see whether you are on the mark or whether you did a sloppy work. If you did a sloppy work, you go back and fix it. You go back 2 or 3 of these unit runs and unit rises, and then you fix it until your pencil lines land where they should be. So that's where I did my outline with a big blue marker, and you can see these triangles are to be cut away and removed. As I said before, I extended this first run here to get me a plumb cut, sorry guys, and I also extended my fourth riser down to get me my, sorry, that first one was the level cut and that's my plumb cut. So the stair will work this way, and the shortenings are here. This little bit here is a shortening. The reason for this shortening is that this set of stairs is gonna be hung and fixed to the landing by using a 3/4 inch thick plywood, and therefore I'm shortening this last run by 3/4 of an inch here, and this 3/4 is measured at along the run, not along the edge. So here is 3/4 of an inch coming out. So the final shape is this one here, and all this is cut away. That slice is also a cut away, and this one is also a cut away. It's coming out. Likewise, on the lower end of the stairs here, this part here is a cutaway, and I shorten my first rise by the thickness of the thread. You need to know what the thickness of the thread is. If it's 2x lumber, then it's 1.5 inches. In this case, it's 1.5 inches. And if you have plywood and finished flooring on it, or plywood with tile on it, you have to consider the thickness of the plywood, the grout or mortar bed, and the thickness of the tile. So everything here, the thread with its full final finish has to be considered here, and all of this you have to shorten your first riser by. The reason for it is, you can check it with a tape measure, that if you draw the threads here on your piece of 2x10 without cutting anything, then you measure your first run from this line, because that's where I'm planning to cut this one, so that's going to be a cutaway. Your first riser here will be the same as your second riser, because now we're measuring from the top of the first thread to the top of the second thread. So this way it's going to be consistent. Remember the part of the building code where it says stairs shall have uniform rises and runs. So do these shortenings carefully, and this is why calculation is very important. Good stairs don't just happen by accident or by mistake. They need to be carefully laid out and carefully calculated. Now we're good to go to make the cuts.